Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not watching it right now.
Welcome to Gatekeeper Talks. I am your host, the Genie, and today we have our usual Ethan Miller
Yep.
and a special guest, Andrew McDowell.
What is up?
Okay, so today, before we get into the topic, we're going to be talking about the grand finals of season 4, and then we're going to kind of go into like our thoughts of season 5. Before I go into that, I had some notes here that I kind of wanted to go over that I've been thinking of since our last episode, and I kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts on these things. So last week, Andrew came to me after our last episode and said he feels he is a mix between me and you, Ethan, as far as play style. How do you feel about that statement?
How would you describe that, Andrew? Like, what makes you think that?
Okay,
Actually, I'm
so
interested in.
so the reason I actually said that is because the way I see both of you two as you're playing, well, it kind of goes back to that last podcast where Steven kind of mentioned how he plays very strict to a strategy, and even if it's not kind of working, he'll kind of just play that strategy. So it's like if he wants to go into a game playing dragons, like that whole game, that's his focus. Like he will play that play style and just hold it. Well, on the other note, you kind of play this game where, depending on what you see. So if you see that one person is building up, like getting really strong on a gate, and maybe you were going for another gate, you are now going to possibly change your strategy up to throw that other player off. So you're constantly kind of changing things up. Where I would say the way I am with that play style is I'm choosing what to do before the game, and even though I stick with it, I'm gonna change it up lightly. So, for example, like how I played, like with the Eldarian and the Green Gate, my whole game's like play style is I knew like, okay, how do I get the most points? I got to jackpot. I got to get Green Gate. I got to become center. I always knew that's how you got the most points, and I found how I can make that work by playing a more passive role in the
Say
beginning.
it one more time. Go over the whole like step by step. What is the strat that you felt got you the more points? So you said,
Okay, the strategy to get the most points, in my opinion. So when I first started kind of playing last season, I would say everything kind of started the season before that, which would be season 3, I believe, the one that Lucas had gotten first. Um, when that season, I mean, I kind of had a lot of points that season. I had some, off parts that season, good parts about that season. But I think that entire season for me was trying to figure out a meta that I could play that people wouldn't know is the strongest.
okay,
So
and
the
while
whole
he's
time,
talking, I'll just bring up real quick the Gatekeeper season 3 stats so people can sort of
yeah.
see
So
that. But you go ahead. Go ahead.
like I would notice like so when Lucas was winning a lot, like a lot of times like me and Lucas play. We both had a green bonus, and me being friends with Lucas, I knew a lot of times we would go for like we would a lot of times try to like team up and like use kind of the politic advantage and things. But I found like for me like I just wasn't not having any success teaming up with people because I found that it became kind of a 50-50 game, and I felt
Mm-hmm.
like I didn't have like a strong individual strategy. So I started branching out and kind of taking this role where I was like, I have to get Green Gate no matter what, and my pure focus is on that. And then if I have advantages, then I'll continue to push to Blue Gate, and then immediately
Okay.
go for Gatekeeper.
So we could
I,
almost say like Lucas is red for green, and
right.
then you're at the place of okay, so now I'm going for green no matter what, and then go ahead.
So I realized like, okay, like even if I'm teaming with people, I have to take this Green Gate. Like if I need an advantage, like that's what I'm going. So this season, like I was constantly like, okay, the strategy for me is to get this gate, and then I have to immediately try to gain health. So not only was I gaining 3 health every turn, I was making sure I was getting dragons that gained me 3 health. I was doing Alderman towers for gaining 3 health. Like the whole time I was constantly doing it because people wouldn't realize like I was
Right.
getting health faster than like probably anybody else on the board,
So
practically because of those few reasons.
and so I don't see this that often from other players, where other players sort of use the dragons like they'll immediately go for the deal 3 damage dragon, which I'm not sure if that's I mean that's usually kind of the meta decision to do. Regardless, there's certain like the double as a way to get kills, and you're almost going to the extent of using it to jackpot, which is something that I don't think any player other than you has really explored.
Now that you're saying this, I remember a time, Andrew, where you gained like 15 health in one turn.
Yeah, I do remember that game.
Like that's what that makes me think of. And now that you're saying that, I could definitely see like instead of focusing on going for other gates or like going to be more of an aggressive playstyle, you're just double dragging, turning in your gain 3 health, dragging every time, and you're just stocking up.
Would you
Actually, let me add on that real quick, Steven. That game specifically, I remember. I think there was a gatekeeper at the exact time, so I was trying to
How much health
jackpot to get.
specifically was it? Do you remember?
It
'Cause it
was
was something
it was
crazy.
over 10. It was
I think it
over
was like
10.
12, like 12. If I
So
remember
I
right.
remember that I was like, okay, there was a gatekeeper, and the only way we could win is if I got an insane amount of health. And honestly,
Yeah.
this was I think the day that I started realizing the strategy inside of the Green Gate because I rolled something on my trait roll that gave me +3 health. So I'm pretty sure because at least that started. And then I rolled for the Elderman Tower +3 health, and then I did the double dragon turn for +3. So then I got 6 more health on top of that. And then, if I'm not mistaken, there was one more like thing that was just like a little that I threw in there that like we didn't expect. And by doing that, like though I completely changed like the strategy of gaining health quickly because like that like hadn't been seen in such a rapid succession. Like we had talked about in seasons prior how to kill someone in like you know what I mean, like 9 health
Yeah, it was
with
always how
one
to
hit.
kill,
Like
how to use the red
right,
to get
right.
kill them in one
Cool.
turn. It was never the more like defensive strategy.
so do you kind of think like you basically are just I mean, because a lot of times, like for example, for kills. So I'm someone who, me and Ethan are probably the first players, and Ethan especially is the only player in the grand finals to use the double dragon turn in. For me, I feel like if I want to go for a kill, then I take a long time to set up for that kill. And so, do you
Yeah.
feel like you're setting up for this jackpot like the whole game while other people and people don't even realize it? Is that kind of what's happening, or do you feel like you kind of walk into the jackpot?
No,
Or
I definitely plan. Like I go into the game knowing like I have to jack. Like that's my goal because even if I don't get it set up, I have to, and someone else becomes like the gatekeeper or whatever first. Like I can use it to my advantage, and that's why sometimes I'll force someone to become like first rotation. But most of the time, like I think I became first rotation a lot this season because a lot of times people would try to force me to become center.
average rotation survive. I mean, we can compare you to Lucas. Actually, let me talk about this. Real quick. Lucas had an average rotation survive of 2.17 the first, and you only had 1.3,
Right. Yeah.
which was
and that makes sense.
relatively lower. So then season 4, you went up half a point. You went up 0.17, which means you're surviving like 2 rotations every time. So especially if you're hitting,
Right.
and Lucas dropped all the way down to 0.3, which is a
Yeah.
less than a rotation every time. And if we compare it to Ethan, let's look at Ethan's. Ethan's at 1, so you got
Yeah.
Ethan beat too. And
Yeah,
Ethan was
definitely.
rank 3 and rank well, yeah, he was rank 4 in the, but rank 2 in Indiana. So yeah, I mean you keep going if you have anything else to say
So
about that.
Yeah, no. So with that, so I was like, I kind of realized. So I always used to bait people into becoming gate to another level, and what made it people think, oh, this needs to be nerfed. Like people never said like things need to be nerfed until I started like, I think, like me and like other players kind of started doing these kind of things where we started jackpotting like crazy and
I
thinking
think
it.
you,
I
well, I
didn't.
think Drew Moreno was the first one to really like focus Green Gate heavy. And I think we talked about this last week, Steven. I think you pushed the meta, obviously, of the Green
Well,
Gate being
and
like as powerful as it is
so also
now.
I'd like to preface too. So season 3, like what you're talking about there, that's something that I think is actually really big. So back in like season 2 is when that developed. The idea that okay, to counter red, you go for green and you become the second gatekeeper. And you kind of touched upon it
Right.
a little bit where you talked about baiting someone in the center. And we even did that
Right.
in season 4, I think. Sorry, in the grand finals of season 3, I mean, when we like well, I don't know if we did in the grand finals, but essentially the thought is you lower the center and then you put someone in a position because you said this
Where they
kill
take
heavy,
it, but then you're able to kill them.
but not even just that, you put him in the because we knew at some point as the meta developed that if you take center, of course you're gonna die, but we had such a heavy kill focused meta that people had to go for the center, otherwise their next turn they would down.
Okay. So, well, I was saying, okay, so with your remark about Drew, so the thing about that is there's like at that point, I think it was like me, Drew, and then like those me and with Drew individually, because typically we had a lot of split tables, and I didn't really play against him. So I feel like we were both kind of developing what this new kind of meta is individually, and where it stopped though is when it kind of got to a point where it was just playing Green Gate to like mastering it, like versus like just playing it good versus like starting putting it to a point where it's never been before. So what I wanted to eventually bring up is back to when I said that I was people used to bait people in, right, to become gatekeeper, but I've recognized this since like season 3 that this was like becoming like so like it would always happen to me where someone would force me to become gatekeeper and I get 1 point, I'm out. And that's why I didn't do too good. I always lost, but like I could get some points like that. But with season 4, I realized, okay, I can use them baiting me to become center to my advantage. So what I started doing is it wasn't so much becoming gatekeeper from a jackpot. It became everything from my planning to become gatekeeper. So a lot of my wins there was one case in particular where I did a double dragon turn in for 2 stockades, and then I became gatekeeper on the same turn.
Okay,
And
so essentially
from a
it's like
jackpot.
so
And you
kind
jackpotted.
so it was that a first
Yeah.
gatekeeper? Was that
Right, and I was first rotation gatekeeper, and I
okay, so
won
I'm
all 3
seeing
rotations.
so
And that is, to me, was like, because I started getting
that's
these games where I was winning like 12 points. Like I was getting crazy points per game,
okay.
and then which was nuts. That alone had not like been seen where they were like, okay, well let's just bait him to center. And then once they got to me like to like 27 health, they're like super high, and they were like, okay, he's gonna become gatekeeper next turn. He only has green gate, and that's when I would surprise everyone by flipping the tables by using all my advantages towards getting stockades and building up an overpowered center.
So okay, so I see that. Okay, so let me reiterate for my own understanding. So you essentially said, all right, if I go for green, I can bait someone into the center. Okay, which is good. But if they don't take the bait, then the
No, they
game.
can bait me.
So if they don't take the initial bait,
Center.
or if, for example, in what you're saying is basically like you are they're saying that they want you to take it first, and you basically were like, all right, that's okay, and then you've just found defensive measurements that you could take to where it's okay, basically, for you to take
Well,
gatekeeper first.
sort of. It wasn't necessarily like go. When you say taking center, I do mean like it was always coming from jackpot because since I would
Right.
use jackpot so much, they wanted me to get jackpot, so they would always give me restoration dies. They would always anything to do to get me to 30 health because they thought that if they could force the jackpot early, it would hurt me. It was
The meta was
utilizing
always the
Yeah.
my
meta was always
profile to
2
actually
gates.
help
If you
out.
don't have 2 gates in the center, then you're gonna lose.
Right,
And that's
right, exactly.
exactly, and I can tell the viewers or the listeners, that is tit for tat, exactly what we said in the grand finals. Let's put Andrew into center first. So
And I
this
knew that
whole
was coming.
time, there is a whole line of thinking in Andrew's head, which is, people do this to me. How do I counter it? So Andrew, obviously, and the finals were stacked. You know, it wasn't as easy, and it really was held to the line. He didn't have as much time to prepare. But with that being said, he still the thought process was there, and that's how he was able to give himself. Because I think you bought yourself an extra turn too.
Yeah, I bought myself an extra turn. I unfortunately missed a stockade roll that was actually like a really easy roll, so I kind of missed the odds on that one. And another thing I did
True,
was
that's
as I was
crazy.
gatekeeper, I changed up where I placed my lane shield, and that plus me attacking certain individuals instead of like what was ordinary was like the perfect plays that like weren't necessarily the usual. Like I remember I just did a few things that were unique that were able to put me barely over the line to survive. Because I mean I was down to 1 health, so it wasn't an easy like no problem victory. But like as much as they had like some bad luck rolls against me, I also had my bad luck against getting my stockade. So I think it overall just came down to sure it could have gone another way, but at the same time, like I played it as perfect as I probably could have,
Well,
and there was some confusion on the other players, like whether to go for this play or the other play. So who knows if maybe they chose a different route to try to kill me, they would have won.
well, Ethan and I said this too in the last podcast, or at least I said it, was that I felt like what made you better than us specifically was that you don't make any mistakes. So whereas because I feel like okay, to be honest, the strategy that you described is a lot different than a lot of the. So I think Ethan and I came to the conclusion that me and there's a lot of creativity and the strategies and stuff that we thought of, but I think you've taken the green meta so far that it's probably farther than we've thought it, than I've even thought it through. So I have to give you credit there. And then on top of that, I do think that there is a level of I don't know what you call it, like stone coldness that takes place for me. It's like when I'll have my strategy, right? So like I kind of invented and have been perfecting over season 4 the stockade meta, where you take an early gatekeeper with multiple stockades, and that's become more possible with the strategy cards, that with the mana based cards that we have now. But with that being
Right.
said, even I know every time I lose a game, I'm like, dang, I made a mistake here. I made a mistake there. Like, oh, I should have done this. I should have done that. And there's always something that I miss. But I felt like in that grand finals that, there wasn't any holes to poke through.
Yeah. So one thing I actually want to add on that I think is really interesting is, if I'm not mistaken, I had the highest KD this season, correct?
Let me pull it up. So right now I've got the grand finals, and I've got the not that one. I've got the grand finals and I see right here. The stats up right now. So
Right.
so season 4, you said season 5 season 4 KD, you said?
Yeah. Check
Season 4. Okay, season 4 KD 5. Yep, that is finally the highest. Yeah, no one even is close.
So this is where I want to add on to something, because this is probably one of the parts of my strategy that I think a lot of people miss. So I played Eldarian, which is green +2, blue +1. There
Yeah.
isn't even an ounce of like Blackgate. Like I did not go for Blackgate. I did not go for Redgate unless they were free, like they were at 1 health or something. And
Yeah.
typically I gave them up.
Which
But
is crazy because those, by the average player, are considered the strongest gates.
right, and on top of that, black is no, like, I mean, you take Blackgate if you're trying to go for other players. Like you think that you would see someone who is like a black, who plays like demon or something like that with a +3
Yeah.
on black,
And
who's
actually,
getting the most kills.
Let me look at who the highest rated black player was. It was Gabe Frayne, and his KD. Let's talk about his KD. Plays he what do you say, minus
0.3.
0.3, even lower. Crap, that's actually really bad.
I mean,
Okay,
one
yeah,
KD isn't that bad because if you think about it, that's still like 5 is actually crazy.
5 is insane.
yeah.
1 is like not. Yeah.
I mean, who was the second highest? Who was the second highest? Real quick, let me look at it. It was Kenneth. It was Kenneth. And guess who Kenneth plays? The Eldarian.
Eldarian.
Wow. So there is sort of an emulation, and Kenneth doesn't have his strategies thought out as far in.
Which made it really
Right.
hard for our players to be more consistent. So it's things that we had I had as a consistent season as I did, because that means everything besides my card, which the Eldarian on the random edge of things was a very neutral card. So I typically I chose that specifically because I didn't want that to throw my game. And because of that didn't throw my game, I was able to focus on all my roles and just play the things with better odds. So back to what I was saying though, is because the reason I had all of these kills was because I was focusing on becoming Gatekeeper around rotation 1, I changed the way you could play as first rotation Gatekeeper. Instead of just attacking a gate on my turn and then that being that, if I miss it or whatever, I would take battles more often. I probably took the one-on-one battles more than I would say the majority of the player base.
Yeah.
And I would just take my, Gatekeeper piece and go up to them and just battle them just because. And I think I even did that in the grand finals for just trying to. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm almost positive that I did that, trying to get more kills. And that's how I made the KD change. Because a lot of players would get double dragon turn-ins, +3 damage, deal 3 damage, dragon, all that kind of stuff. And they were just doing it whenever someone got low. But I didn't like that strategy. I actually hated that strategy because I felt that it was kind of mundane and it was only used just to, it was if you miss, then somebody else is going to get the kill. I didn't like that. I don't want to do a kill that if I miss, somebody else gets it.
Mm-hmm.
But as Gatekeeper, I am the most powerful player on the board. So I now have the ability to take out every other player with a 20-sided die versus a 12-sided die in a battle.
So let me get this straight. So you're telling me your KD, this is definitely something I didn't notice at all. Your KD, you think came from the games that you were Gatekeeper?
Yes.
Wow. So what we're doing is we're surviving one rotation. So we're okay. So first of all, we're accepting the fact that we're gonna jackpot. We're gonna be forced in the jackpot. And we're going to use that to people's disadvantage, saying that they think they're going to be an advantage, but instead, no, I'm going to set myself up for a stockade or whatnot, or whatever the situation is, so that by the time that happens, I'm actually going to put myself in a good spot. So then you take center, and then you survive the first rotation, and the second rotation is spent literally killing other players, forcing them, which destroys their ability.
If I'm versing 6 other players, then they're going to think, oh my goodness, he only has 1 gate. We can definitely take him. We have 3 rotations.
Yeah.
On my first turn, because after first rotation, they typically lowered me below 10 health, which would always be really bad unless I had stockade.
The finals, we literally got you to 1.
Right, which was crazy. So what did I immediately try to do? I was looking for kills. I was looking for damage. I was choosing the gates that I chose to attack from Gatekeeper were ones that I could use the bonuses or whatever to damage. So I think the lowest, I forgot who it was, but whoever owned Blackgate during the finals, I noticed that their health was low. So even though Blackgate might not have been the most useful for me in that moment, I wanted the battle for Blackgate because I could use a 20-sided die versus 12-sided die, and I ended up killing that player.
And this was in the finals. That's in the finals. That's the one you're talking about. And we'll watch some of these clips in a second. So I'm just waiting until we get to the point where.
Yeah, and I can't remember specifically, but I do know I went on a killing rampage during the finals.
So in the beginning of the game, you killed Seth, and actually that is about to happen here. If you guys would like to observe that kill here.
You just got to switch off you're still on the spreadsheet.
Oh, I am? Okay. I see what you're saying. Okay, what about now?
Yep, can see it now. Make it full screen.
Okay, and can you hear it?
No, because you have the volume all the way low.
I think they're gunning for Andrew, which I would too.
And he had a dominant first turn.
Whose turn is it, Seth's?
Okay, so it's Seth's turn.
I'm
attacking green gate.
He's attacking green, so he's going for Andrew.
He got it!
In a battle.
Here we go, 3, 2, 1. Got a 6. Oh,
I suck at rolling right
So
now.
Seth literally lost
no.
5 health in the battle.
Seth lost the battle
That's
to
crazy.
Andrew, and it was a 6 to 1, so he lost
Literally
5 damage. And he
6 to 1. Lost 5 health. And then guess whose turn is it next? It's Andrew's turn. It's Andrew's
You
turn.
never know.
And I literally punished him for attacking the gate.
That's crazy.
What people do in this game is, do they take the risk?
Okay, so we can we'll move on. We'll move on and keep talking about stuff, and then we'll get to the next highlight in a bit. Do you have anything else you want to add to your strat? I mean, you seem like
yeah,
you
I
got.
guess the only other thing I would say is like beginning game, I definitely was playing closer to Ethan's play style, where I played very like right there. Like Ethan would have made the exact same decision making as me right there. You know what I mean? Like I mean most players would obviously in that case, but I take whatever advantage I'm given and punish it immediately. Like I'm not gonna wait it out. Like even if I would have had a
Well,
double
let's see here.
dragon turn
Did you
in
battle
there.
him? Did you battle him after that? I mean, we're about to watch your turn here. Let me.
Yes.
Basically,
You got him?
Good season, boys.
So Andrew, how did you kill him though?
I moved my lane shield instead of going for this.
I won the
tower. I moved
qualifier.
Oh,
to
I remember
destroy
that.
this,
That was actually so
got a
sad.
dragon.
So what'd you do? What'd you do?
So I went. So instead of going for the Elderman Tower, I go for the dragon because I have a better odds of getting the dragon, and then I just turned in the dragon right away.
Oh my,
What?
yeah, and so he went for the blue
What dragon?
blue lane shield for the red dragon.
I have the red dragon now.
I don't. You must have not had it at that point. Otherwise, we wouldn't have.
I just said it out loud.
Yeah, you did just say it out loud, and we would have
'Cause
said
it was
something.
only for that one turn, so you must have gotten it. You could have gotten it right after that.
I mean, it's very likely that. I mean, was the. It's hard to tell, but if you look at the small, you can't really see it, but the dragons were all laid there at the beginning of the game, so it's very possible that.
He's right there.
Yeah. That being said, so okay, were you gonna say something else? I'm sorry, you were talking and then I interrupted you.
Oh yeah, the only other yeah, I mean, I guess I just would say like I just take whatever advantages that I would get up front. But my strategy was ultimately that end game is like gatekeeper. But like my early game, my full focus was on playing passive. I never made alliances. I made myself completely passive and not the target because, like you were saying, like it was actually crazy just the way I would play adaptable. Because I know you had brought this up last time, and I talked to you, Steven, about this. But when I played in New York, like the strategy was completely different. It was whoever became gatekeeper first won. So when I went there, I literally got destroyed because I tried letting someone else become gatekeeper, and I got punished for that. The second game, I immediately switched up my strategy, played adaptable, and I played everything as I could up front. I played as aggressive as possible, became center, and won.
Well, and it helps too that you know the strategies that are available to you compared to
Right.
some of the. I originally asked the question to Ethan what he thought of playstyle. So what do you think? Any thoughts that you have regarding this matter?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, so okay. I mean, I guess for me, initially, as far as like strategy goes, this is the first time Andrew has really gone in depth with his
Yeah.
strategy, and I'm definitely very impressed to hear.
Yeah, I am too.
Sort of like how far deep it goes. Truthfully, and I'm kind of getting a giggle here because I'm looking at the two of us on the screen. But I think I have spent so long focusing on trying to improve blue gate strats. It is interesting to hear like the depths of the green gate
The
strats.
green. Yeah, it definitely is very. I'm very impressed.
But as far as
I have to go. I'm
Oh, you
sorry.
have to go? Okay, well, thank you, Ethan, for joining us today. The rest of the episode will just be me and Andrew. And we're kind of just going to talk about the rest of the grand finals and what we feel about for season 5. But thanks for joining us today, Ethan.
Yep. I'll see you guys on Sunday, right?
Yep,
Okay.
Sunday night. All right. So, anyway, Andrew. So one thing that, okay, so I guess just to like resolve the question, the initial question, as far as actual play style goes, the I was thinking, to me, and we're talking about the in between of adaptability and hard strategy. I suppose I think this is the biggest difference after hearing you talk is, for me, it was, here's the strategy that I'm going for and I'm going to make it work. Ethan is playing a character that adapts, and then for you, and playing and just taking small advantages as he goes, basically playing by like rules that you learn, like decision making rules that you learn as you play Gatekeeper over time. But for you, what it seems like is like, okay, so I know the rules that Ethan plays by. I have a strategy that Steven has, but ultimately what I'm doing here that differs me from other players is that I'm using my strategy to force other players to counter me, and then I am learning over time, but now have come to a place whereas the counters to my strategy, I have then created new strategies that put me in an even greater advantage. So it's almost as like, it's almost, I can see what you mean by you say it's in between, but it's almost more of a bait and switch tactic of saying like, okay, I'm going to use this strategy that people think doesn't work, and I'm going to use the response to that strategy against them.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely did do like, I would wait for, it would definitely depend on people's strategies, how I would play. So yeah, I guess I had an arsenal of strategies that changed literally every turn.
Mm-hmm.
So if I needed to switch from playing for dragons to, going for an early dragon roll instead of my late dragon roll just as a backup, or going for the jackpot or less odds, except there was a few times where I would go for like, the end game dragon roll, even though I had less of a chance.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, obviously that's just kind of more fun.
In a situation where you felt like you weren't going to win, how would you capitalize on that? What were you, because I know that you were someone who seemed to score a lot of points. Like you obviously, I think it was a 6.9 points per game on the RNG cards, which is unprecedented over a large amount of games too. So what was the strategy going into, okay, I've lost this game, how can I get more points to put me up higher on the leaderboard?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when I knew I lost the game, I guess that would probably look to me as if somebody else became first rotation gatekeeper, and maybe they had maybe they had all the gates, or like just like they have a stockade, and I can just tell like we have no chance, we're not going to win this game. My vote was immediately then going to switch to, there's a few things I'm going to look for. Probably not, because I'm not the gatekeeper. It's not going to be easy for me, so I'm probably not going to look for that. So since I'm typically green gate, I'm going to look for the jackpot point. If I don't have any gates and I can't get gates, I immediately go for dragons for a dragon roll. And I try to, I'll always do something typically health related, because being aggro can typically cause you to die.
Oh, we're having some technical difficulties.
So I would definitely say I'd be...
Okay, you're good. You're good.
That?
You're good. Your voice was getting all technologically distorted, but you're good.
I'm driving around right now. Yeah. So definitely in this switch jackpot.
Okay.
Almost
So
every time, or I would throw myself, like even if I knew I was going to die, I would basically aggro at someone and try to kill them, even if it involved both of us dying. I would suicide.
Okay, so you're basically just saying you go for a kill, whatever it takes. Dragon rolls, just sort of basic kills and dragon rolls, but you're just no longer focused on. So where the alternative would be like a player like me or Gabe Frayne, where every ounce of thought and strategy we have goes into killing the gatekeeper. whether it's a 1 in 1,000 chance or a 1 in 10 chance, whatever the chances are, we're looking for that avenue. And you're basically just saying like screw that. I'm getting my points.
Okay. Can I actually have a perfect example.
Yeah.
So there was the one match where I won't go into full detail, all right, and I think I kind of talked to you about this detail, but there was a game specifically where one of the players was lined up to win, and I really wanted them to win, but everyone else wanted to kill them, obviously, because they don't want to lose this game. It was a pretty big game, but I remember like I was already in the lead and everything for like points, so I didn't really care, and I wanted to see this player get a win, so I specifically took a role that was really bad because it put that player who was as gatekeeper immediately in a winning position. And there was literally nothing that we could do to stop him after I made that bad roll, which might not even be that bad of a roll for a casual player, but I just made a simple change up and play. And I remember everyone was so mad. They were like, why would you do that play? Why would you take that roll? Like, oh my goodness, you totally sold. And I was like, yeah, I sold the game, my bad. But in my head, while everyone else think I just sold the game, I just guaranteed a win for another player by doing something they wouldn't have expected.
Mm-hmm. And what was the advantage to you doing that one more time?
Well, I was already
It was simply because you were in the lead in points.
I was in the lead, and it was a new player. I wanted to see them win.
Okay, so you allow many times, and it's okay. So at this point, you're just building a case for, you're not in the end game. You're not one to look to for a team.
I don't care if it costs the game,
unless it's a grand final situation, and because at that point you have to win. Okay, interesting. So with that being said, I think there's another thing I wanted to talk about real quick. Gate phase versus keeper phase players. And I think basically this is early game versus end game. Early, mid, and then end game. So me and you and Ethan have a very comprehensive understanding of the game, beginning, mid, and end. But there are certain players that I think have very good, basically certain strengths. And the reason I was thinking of this is because, so comparing you to Kenneth, who is the Eldarian for Indiana, and essentially my thought is that for you, what separates the two of you? And my thought is his end game, the New York end game, isn't as experienced. Players like Tori. Tori has already invented meta defining moves we call it the T transition, which I explained in the last podcast. It's basically you battle someone if you lose the battle on purpose, or you put it doesn't matter. You basically lose the battle on purpose, get sent back to your realm, and then you can attack a different gate, maybe if you have limited mobility. So there's something like that. And then he invented this move called the Pincer, which I won't go into details of. But essentially, we've had all this real meta-defining, like a lot of moves that have been created and played. But when it comes to endgame, if you look at the New York endgame, we survive a lot more rotations. Now, some of that is due to I would say some of that is skill-based. I still had the highest average rotation survive. And some of that has to do with the fact that we're using mana strategy cards. But then ultimately what I really think it has to do with is if I'm Gatekeeper and I'm playing against all the other players, in 3 turns from now, this is how we can take them. We can all do this, and this for the next 2 turns so that by the 3rd turn we can do this to stop them. They don't have that in their head yet. So, and versus when I'm on the other end, I am thinking of all those things and I'm kind of directing people because it is a team-based effort there at the end. Now,
let me hop in here before we get too far off.
Go ahead.
The initial question. So you said what separates me versus the other players, and then we talked about beginning, kind of that mid game, and then the end game. So we talked before about Gabe being one of the dominant in-game players, and a lot of that became. I honestly give Gabe credit for being very good at his I guess you could say his political game is actually really good. I don't think people give him credit enough for it.
Sure.
But he will make enemies with the player, and I think people knew that. But he would get other people to kind of gang up on you, and he would never really make enemies with people trying to go against him, other than a one person against him, which is the one person that has the grudge against him from last game. But the person that I was thinking specifically for early game would actually be Lucas. Lucas is probably one of the best early game players
Yeah.
that I have seen. When I played matches with Lucas, it was literally like he was one of the players in order to win, I would have to beat him after. Because Lucas could get to Gatekeeper really quickly. He took advantage of a lot of things just like by playing it really well and making, I would say he made, really good, decent, like, he just had really good early strategy. Like, he didn't really make enemies. He played it smart, and he put himself in a position. Typically, when he became Gatekeeper, it was to win. But when he became Gatekeeper, unless, like, my goal was always to basically set him up in a position where when he became it, I had something extra planned so that we could somehow bring him down. But I definitely would say, like, the credit I give him is he's probably the best early game player. Like, it is, like, it definitely would, like, I was always like, oh my gosh, like, am I going to win? Is he going to win? Because, like, there was some times where Lucas would become Gatekeeper, and there was just nothing we could do to stop him. Like, he just became it was so powerful. And that's why it took off, like, changing up strategy and such. But the next thing I was going to say is, like, what separates me from, like, these players, like, really good end game, coming up with all these strategies is, well, for one, our game hasn't necessarily, we played a slightly different rule set than New York. So New York, we hadn't, like, sent people to realms for every battle and stuff. And it's like that specifically, like, once you start changing rules around, new strategy is going to fly out of the wall, which is really good for the game. And that's why I'm excited for this next season and playing some more games, because we're going to start seeing that in our matches as well, where people are going to start using those strategies. So the newest strategies, I would say, I wasn't necessarily developing new mechanics, I was developing new mentality to facing decisions. So when I would see someone getting close to 30 health, most people are just trying to damage him. Yeah. Or some people are like, most people only want him to become Gatekeeper if he's in a very bad position. Like that's true. But for me, it's like the second I realize that he's going to get it and I have better odds, that his odds are better to become Gatekeeper, I'm not going to try to damage him unless it's like obvious, like I can send damage to him. Yeah. My goal is now to protect myself and build myself up. That way I'm as strong as possible for when he's Gatekeeper. Because if you literally just, see someone that they're getting close to Gatekeeper and just try to damage him, and it's inevitable anyways, you're wasting your turn. And a turn in Gatekeeper is probably like, you know what I mean? If there's 8 players playing, you only get one every 10 minutes. So you have to make the best of it. And you don't have necessarily that much choices to make.
Yeah. I
make them well. I just make them well.
So
I guess yeah.
No, so I like what you're saying, and I think that's true as far as like in New York, it is true we had a slightly different rule set. Our rule set's more similar to season 1 now, to version 1, but it's still ultimately something that is new and different. And now we're going to be on the same rule set this year, which is great. But I would definitely make the claim thing, because one thing that happens when you get new players is they have a lot of things to say about, oh, well, we need the you might want to nerf this or you want to do this, but they're not seeing the end game. They're not seeing everything. Like if something, like let's talk about like let me use the most basic thing that stops new players from playing well is being hard stuck. Okay, well, I'm stuck behind a lane shield and behind 2 lane shields, and I'm out of position, and I'm not on my realm. It's like, for a new player, the thought is, oh, I lost the game. It's too late. Like, I can't, I am now set so far behind that there's no way for me to win. And it's like, for me, and for you, and for all the experienced players, that's nothing. That's just, oh, well, I'm set 1 turn behind, like it'll be fine. Like oh, maybe 1 or 2 turns at the worst. Like, but at the end of the day, like a lot of times we even use that to our own advantage.
Right. To our advantage to get possibly a dragon roll or like just get ready for someone else becoming gatekeeper. Like if I realize that my early game is over, then I'm switching things up.
Middle game, specifically, I was going to say, so I think I agree with what you said about Lucas being early game. So we used to call this the slice. When a player would capture the center between 1 and 2 turns, you could probably give Lucas the title of like slicer strategy. Now, Lucas very, very often would become the first gatekeeper, or he'd become second gatekeeper immediately because he was already ready to become gatekeeper by the time the first person fell into it. And I think I definitely agree with you. And he really pushed the red and green combo because I think people, trying to figure out, well, which 2 gates are the safest to take center with. And
I would say the best red and green. I guess it could be up for debate. And I can't really think of everybody, but I don't know. I always saw Lucas as one of my strong, by far, probably, especially since he just knew the way I would play, probably my strongest opponent in every game. And he was probably the best. The way he played red and green was very strong. He probably played one of the best red and green metas by far.
Right. So I think, and just to add to the topic, I think that's true. I think mid game, I think me and Ethan are some of the better mid game players in that if the game goes past the first 5 turns and no one's gatekeeper, or maybe gatekeeper happen and there's a reset.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point.
Then I would say if I have enough time to prepare, then I
think if everyone has a gate, maybe it's completely split down the middle and it hasn't developed, that's when people start kind of getting hard stuck. But when you and Ethan have that time to kind of start developing strategies, or Ethan starts seeing people make mistakes, Ethan will capitalize on them. And then for you, I would say you kind of have more time for your strategy to settle in. And then you would come kind of out of nowhere and then flip the edge of the game. Mm-hmm. And then, so it's that definitely is the mid game for sure. Definitely.
It has happened in many big matches that we've played where someone will say, Steven hasn't done anything the whole game. But meanwhile, I have been positioning myself on the board. Maybe I'm in a spot that I want to be in. Maybe I've done damage. Maybe I've turned the board a certain way so that to hold other people back or something. Or I'm setting something up the whole time. I'm getting a certain I have a certain dragon, maybe a dragon that they wouldn't expect me to take. There's something going on under the radar, and I'm not gonna say it's super super genius, but the point is that I'm a step ahead of when we get into those stalemates, that's where I thrive. And I could even say as long as I don't become a target in those stalemates, I usually win. And in fact, when going back to the New York League, I think the biggest and we could talk about diplomacy because I think diplomacy players is a big thing. When I think the problem with me here in New York is that I am a target because they know that I am the strongest player here, at least as far as experience goes. And I think that is a big deal. Even in season 1, Ethan being the best player who wasn't a target made him the best player. In New York right now, Kenneth won the grand finals. He won the last match we just played. Also, not a target, not someone that we think of as a threat. And it's sometimes it's that diplomacy thing is another thing. So maybe that's
Well, I was thinking of one thing specifically. What was it? Oh my goodness, just fully lost my thought. Oh yeah, so with mid game. Which is gonna be crazy when we start getting 8-player matches with mana cards.
Yeah,
dude, not only the amount of strategy is gonna be nuts because you are gonna have to be thinking on this player's next turn, they are gonna get this much health or they get killed.
Right.
You have to watch everybody's mana. You have to know everybody's card. The memorization of that alone is gonna like that's the mid, because the mid game is where those kind of cards, like with the big, like 5-point mana hits, like
Yeah.
that's when they're gonna start just
No,
absolutely
it is.
destroying.
And I think I just would like to add this clarification because I'm starting to make this distinction in my head. Early game would be defined as a player who builds an advantage early, fast, and never loses it. Mid game players,
They play with haste. That's how they, like
yeah.
in Magic the Gathering, for example, like red was haste.
I apologize.
If you fail that win, typically another player would win. So it's like, if I think about like we just said with like Lucas as like someone who can become, who's like a very good early game player because his strategy is very sound. He's really good strategy, and not to say like he doesn't have, like he's very good in every area, but like starting game he can literally just whoop anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that red, like if he is able to get his strategy and get good rolls in the beginning, he literally will win the whole game. Behind, then he has to play like more of an end game because his end game is also pretty solid. But like for me, I would say like I'm kind of a mix. I don't know. I'm definitely not. I do not play.
You're not an early game player. No.
I'm more of like. No, I'm definitely a mid to end game. My end game is definitely like, I don't know. I would say like my.
But it's not a comeback end game. So I'd also make that distinction too, because there's players who play from a losing position, and then I think what you do is you take an exponentially advantage or like positive position by the end to where in the mid game
is to set up my end game.
And I would, yeah. Oh, your mic. Try again. Go ahead. Oh, go ahead again.
So talking about my mid game, well, I not look at other players.
Oh, whoops. Yep, your mic is You might want to.
Give me a second. I'm going to go inside.
Okay. You go inside. I'll talk while you're going inside. So anyway, so with mid game, I think that I basically was just gonna say this. I was gonna say like when you're in mid game, you go through the mid game and in the game. He basically is trying to win the game in mid. I would say that I play similar to Ethan in that sense, that I'm gonna go, but then I have a counter strategy of by the time I get to end game, I'll have a comeback strat. So it's like if I don't beat you, like so if we were to play toe to toe, if I don't beat you in mid game, then I am gonna have to go for a comeback in end game. You can start talking as soon as you get your mics fixed or whatever. So I wanted to bring up Gabe Frayne. So Gabe Frayne specifically, and I think it's good that you brought this up. Gabe Frayne there's a stat called keeper kill assist, which is how many times you've helped kill the keeper. Gabe had the most of those in season 4, and that he didn't score a lot of points, and I think it's because he struggled to build that advantage. But the reason why he had keeper kill assist is because his end game was so good. It's like every time Gabe was in the game, it's like there was a much higher chance that the Gatekeeper was going to die. And it's like, I think that says something about his knowledge of the game. And next, I think we're going to talk about some hype rolls on Sunday, and a lot of hype rolls. Well, and a lot of hype rolls, what it has to do with is like your knowledge of finding those like unique situations, and I do think Gabe is an expert at that. So
he's the kind of player that plays. So it's like if he doesn't get a great start and things kind of go his way with rolls and stuff, he might not like set himself up great, and he does typically have to play from a losing endgame position, but he plays it so well. He is like in the grand finals, Gabe's comment, like what he was trying to explain to everyone else was scaring me the most. But if you notice, like, I don't know if you remember, but during the finals, I was trying to agree with certain different people. I felt like Gabe's strategy was actually better. But I was not going to agree with everyone. And I kind of like, even though like everyone would think like, oh, he's not, like, just disagree with everything like Andrew's saying because we want him to lose.
Mm-hmm. But
the difference was I was trying to steer people away from what Gabe was saying, because what Gabe was saying was very scary, because he makes strategies. His strategies are actually really immense in a game. Like, he's thinking of like multiple ways to throw out damage instead of like the one 50-50 chance. Instead of like a few 25% chances that sometimes might actually be the better idea.
Well, and actually, so let's take a pause real quick because I'm looking at the video here and I'd like to continue playing it. You became Gatekeeper here.
Yeah.
You become Gatekeeper, and you have this restoration die with 1 health. How did you get this restoration die?
see him making it to the end of this.
Do you remember?
I'm pretty sure someone gave that one to me.
Someone gave it to you, so
Or it was from, no one would have given me it.
yeah, I don't think.
Restoration die.
No, I think we would have, but you rolled. I think you
I have
used
a
an ability.
restoration die on my trait roll.
Yeah,
That's what it
so use the ability. So let's talk about. I think that's important to mention because you would have became Gatekeeper a turn before, but because
Right.
you delayed yourself, you became Gatekeeper a turn later, and that allowed you to have the restoration die roll. Which then, if you look at the thing right now, so he has one. There's one on the restoration die,
Yeah.
and in the first rotation, which
Right.
I will fast forward here. If within the first rotation, and I'm just gonna try to find it real quick.
I don't know how Gabe.
And right there, 4 health,
Exactly. Got it.
and maybe I should 1 health. Right there, 1 health. Because he had that one, because of that one move to delay yourself becoming Gatekeeper. And I don't have the actual play right here. It'd be too hard to find because they didn't do the camera correctly for it. But essentially, because of the one move that he did earlier to delay himself to become Gatekeeper, he was able to roll on his card a restoration die, which allowed him to have that 1 extra health, which saved his life right here, because otherwise he would have been dead. Finish this conversation.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, and so I guess what I would say to summarize Gabe's gameplay is that Gabe Frayne, if you're in a situation where you have if you're in a losing situation, Gabe's the one I want on my team. And so we talked about, we gave him a B tier rating. Honestly, maybe that rating's too low given the conversation we're having now. But I think that when you struggle mid game, early game, his win percentages are low, his stats are low. It's his in fact, it was the clutch factor that allowed him to get into the finals in the first place, especially season 3. And actually, so I want to talk about this in a second here. But are there any other players, early, mid, late game, that come to mind that you would want to touch upon before we get into this grand finals analysis here?
Oh, that's a good question.
I got two in mind. I can briefly cover.
Okay. Here's a comment.
Okay.
So, another big player is Danny, right?
Yep. I was gonna talk about
So, I'm curious what you have to say about him. But first, I guess there's 2 things I noticed about the way Danny plays. Is one, he plays kind of like, I don't know what his name is from New York, but you would like, but he plays with this aggro nature, even when it might not be the best for himself. He will take a risk that could be just cause chaos. So he might deal 3 damage to someone who's at 6 health, even though he won't be able to get the kill.
Mm.
He will make plays like that and these kind of reckless moves that you have to watch out for. And sometimes I think what causes him and allowed him to get to a point where he was winning so much, and why he's not able to do it so much now, is originally when he would do these plays, and he would cause so much chaos inside of the game with these little plays that he would put himself in a position while everyone else is scrambling. He is just playing calm and playing just every turn as it is. He sees the turn, he goes for the best move. He sees the turn, he goes for the best move. But because that chain reaction he started on his second turn, it's like now he's in a good position and now he's going to take the dub. But like with these newer seasons, players like myself, Lucas, Ethan, like you, like it's like we kind of, I feel like, I mean, I don't know, I guess all of us individually read different players differently, but for myself, like when I play against Danny, like I know like I can never leave myself in a vulnerable position for even one turn, because if I do, Danny will capitalize.
Yeah.
And not necessarily killing me, but he'll just do something to me that'll start a chain reaction that'll mess me up.
So Danny basically is a meta breaker. He throws a wrench into the plans of the other players, into the way the game is supposed to be played, and thrives on the chaos that ensues. And I think one thing that helped him out, I mentioned this last podcast, but I think this is actually it's probably smart, especially if it does it on purpose, but as a Blackgate player, which there are not that many, because most players...
Go ahead and talk for a second. I'm going to mute myself.
Because most players went for red, historically. Making this chaos, he was the one who could capitalize the most, because his gate was strong enough to deal damage to the center. It was strong enough to... how do I say this? It was strong enough to take other gates because of the battle bonus. And it was also helping him get kills. So it's like, amidst the meta throw, the gate itself provided enough strength, especially since it wasn't as heavily contested, to just win the game. And I think that's something that I have never really considered, to where if we were to change it, right? Okay, well then all of a sudden when someone kills that person, they jackpot, they take red gate from you. But no one's taking black gate from you. No one's taking black if they don't have red. So if you have black, like Danny did, and he set someone up to lose their gate or to die or whatever, all of that advantage that player is losing is almost never going to be used against him. And the difference is that the change in setup for the center, like the strategy that are being used, his strategy would be the only strategy unaffected if we follow that line of thought. And I think that's pretty impressive. More specific, like more in particular to what I was going to say, I believe that Danny is I think he's pretty much a mid-game player, but I do see your point here. I would say that I don't think I see Danny make... But that being said, though, maybe that's wrong. So I think Danny's a mid-game player, but he does have a strong end game.
Well, actually, hold on a second, because I was saying like he was throwing that wrench in or whatever.
Yeah, I was agreeing with you.
Yeah. So like, I'm like saying that like that's an interesting like way though that you sum that up with like how he was able to use black as, even though it's like so it's kind of viewed as like it's like the second strongest like attacking gate, and because of that he was able to throw the wrench in, and when people got advantages because of his reckless play, he wouldn't take any negatives from that. He would just take the benefits of his like chaotic play. Mm-hmm. But like that was really smart of him for doing that, and whether he recognized that or not, he saw that it worked and he utilized that. Mm-hmm. But it definitely like the strategies have definitely changed, and like because of like Green Gate becoming so potent this season, mm-hmm. it just wasn't able to work the same way.
Well, it would make sense why he hasn't been able to, why that works, but it doesn't work. It hasn't worked for him to get into any grand finals because, well, like I said, he's missed grand finals mostly due to the fact that if he doesn't have any momentum, I don't want to say momentum, but if he's playing games on a more risky level where he's like, okay, well, I'm just going to attack this gate even though there's a 50-50 chance I lose a battle, take damage. In fact, that's how he died in the semifinals, is he took a battle. Whereas I don't take a battle if I don't have to, almost ever. And like I would normally put someone out of position before I even go for their gate, probably 75% of the time. Or at least get a stockade so I don't take damage. So with that being said, Danny doesn't really care. So if a 50-50 goes out of a couple 50-50s going the wrong way for Danny, then he loses early game. So I would say that Danny probably has a really bad early game, but a good mid game or a strong mid game and also a strong end game. But it's really thrown off by an actually bad early game compared to Gabe, who has probably a bad early game, bad mid game, but strong end game, because I know they're ranked very closely on the leaderboard. So I was just thinking about, and when I say bad, that is of course, in like compared to the top players,
how good of a player they are. Like
Yeah.
Gabe is a very good player. So when we say his bad, like that's still like going to destroy any regular player, no problem.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay, so I have to go pretty soon for my practice, but let's kind of bring things to a close here. So one, I'll kind of just like wrap up like with a lot of things you're saying. So like for me, I would say like a lot of the things that I wanted to talk about today, with being on here, is the fact that way past just utilizing Green Gate to its fullest.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had way more ideas about it than people kind of realized.
Yeah.
And I think I definitely like kind of brought a lot of that out today, and like how it became so strong and why I was able just to kind of dominate most of the time, which is honestly pretty crazy. And honestly, it was a really good season. Obviously, like seasons are going to change, new players are going to get better. Obviously, RNG might not go 100% my way one season. Like it's not a big deal, but I would say like that was that was the reason I was able to dominate last season. After that, I think there is many different players with many different strengths. And for me, I think everything with these new cards for Indiana, at least, is going to change. Every player is going to have to – I think we're going to get new players. We're going to get, certain players are going to probably drop. And it's like we're going to see a huge difference in, like, how the game is played, who's going to rise. Because, like, literally this simple switch of switching to these cards – could make players like me, completely drop off. But I doubt that.
I think it's I think it's more going to improve your consistency.
And also like I was gonna even say like it was crazy to me because like I even was showing a new player Gatekeeper the other day, and we were just 1v1ing, and it was like I just immediately like I was trying to like throw, and like I was like just making simple decisions that were leaving him completely helpless. And you don't realize that until you get into a certain point in the game where you just know the strategy. So I will say, like, it's cool to see this game hitting a point, and I think Season 4 was kind of a telltale. Like, it finally has, like, gotten to a point where Gatekeeper is now, like, a very, like, competitive game, and it's not just this big RNG ball where everyone's hitting crazy dragon rolls. And I feel like in Season 3, we were seeing like a very nice strategy, like from Lucas. Like Lucas was playing so good, and then it was like out of nowhere, Jaden Adcock gets this crazy win. Where Season 4, that stuff kind of died down a little bit, and we saw more of a consistent strategic win all the way throughout.
Jaden Adcock was actually the other player I was going to mention, and I'll spare the details for the sake of your time. But his early game, I feel, is extremely strong, but his mid game and late game is really bad. Especially his late game, I think if he doesn't,
good because he's gate heavy.
If he doesn't win early, like in the beginning, he doesn't win the game.
Yeah, unless he's clutch.
At all. Yeah, that is true. Except for the clutch, so he did get 2 really good clutches.
He goes for clutches. Yeah, he puts himself in a position where he's helpless unless he clutches, and that's why.
So I mean that is more of just happenstance to me than it is like Gabe who does it on purpose, who says like, okay, I'm gonna.
For sure, 100%.
But go, yeah. Is there anything else? Do you have to go now, or do you have any more time? Because I'm gonna spend the last like 5 minutes here, just kind of going over some of the moves you made in the grand finals, and then just
I'll probably head out, but I guess I'll just leave it with like you guys will see like as you kind of go over the moves, just kind of like how I was thinking, and there was definitely even more going on than probably just face level like. Everything that I moved in the grand finals, like I had 3 decisions, like 3 reasons for every single thing like I was doing. Like whether it was who I was attacking, it wasn't just because it was a certain gate. Like I was looking for the kills behind the gate, and like so it was definitely a really good season for me. It was good talking on this podcast today. So but yeah, it went well. I feel like I
Yeah.
think we got a lot of points out.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's really good, and I'm excited just from hearing from you, is from hearing other players' thoughts and strategies, because again, it's not something Ethan and I talk about theory a lot, but I really haven't heard the in-depths of other people's strategies that often, and so I think it's a good thing. I'm glad that we can enlighten that.
Right.
All right, anything you want to say before you go?
Not much other than season 5. Everybody better watch out. I know it's been a little bit harder for Indiana leagues to be consistent and get going, but I know I'm going to start doing some matches pretty shortly. So I'm really excited for how those are going to go. So everyone will see my stats hopefully fly up. So let's get it.
All right. Well, thank you, Andrew, for being a part of it. We'll talk to you later.
All right, sounds good. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
All right, bye. All right, so now it's just going to be me. I'm just going to go over some moves that Andrew made in the grand final. So here you can kind of see, and like obviously if you're listening you can't see, but when Andrew, after the first rotation, he had 1 health. He immediately went up at least to 4, but it looks to me, I'm not sure if he's done it yet. Yeah, he went up to 7. And that's because he had green health, so he could gain health. But I want to talk about his shield placement. So he put the gain 2 health lane shield on red, and she black. So that's really strong. And then that's also really great for him too, because the thing that happened is on the Gatekeeper card, really with 1 health, he's gonna get attacked by 2 gates here. There's not really any way that he survives, even with the health bonuses that he got. And actually, now that I'm looking at this, I'm thinking that this is a blurred 4. So I think he only had 4 health. I could genuinely be wrong, but I do believe he is at 4. So the thing I'd like to take away from this is that if he didn't get that 2 lane shields, then he had to destroy it. He had green after the first rotation. So he has green, he has red blocked off, he has black blocked off. Red is blocked off with the gain 2 HP, and that's a big deal. So strat, we call it the T-pose. Puts 2 shields on either side of him, and then he takes the other gate. So it's like it's something that usually you can't do to your second rotation, but to your second turn as Gatekeeper. But because he got that turn, he was able to do it first. Now he didn't capture blue. He's got 4 health, and like I said, I just want to emphasize the shield placement here with the gain 2 health on red. So now going forward, and I think I'm going to turn the volume on here so we can listen.
Steven in position for these, and Gabe in position.
I'm gonna let Steven through.
Okay. So
And then I still own blue gate, so I can roll a 6-sided at the center. So
okay, so one thing we're working on here
5 the first time.
is we're trying to take black lane shields, and the black lane shields, when you destroy them, they do 2 damage. So of course, I believe that there is 1 black lane shield up right now. So we only need to destroy 2 of them, and I also believe that it is Gabe Frayne who has the path to destroy it. So we need to destroy 2 of those lane shields. But unfortunately, there's only 1 up right now, so we're only going to be able to do 2 damage with it this turn. On the other hand, Lucas is making this point right now.
If I don't get it, Gabe could finish him off.
Right. Okay. So Lucas has to roll at least a 4 on a 6-sided dice. It's a 50-50. If he doesn't get it, then the thought is Gabe can finish him off. Okay. So if we can fast forward here.
He's the clutch. Gabe's like that.
Don't let him.
Which is a really lane shield. The Gatekeeper.
ideas.
Which is really smart.
Yeah, the Gatekeeper's not the one with the black gate.
Black.
That's our best bet.
Oh, is he actually?
So, alright, that's me.
And there's sort of a lot of things going on right now that it's kind of hard to
Steven
to
got
gather all the
his
information.
On what? What are you going for?
Okay. So and I just attacked black.
So you did get the lane shield. You dealt 2 damage because of the lane shield penalty.
The black lane.
So Andrew's sitting at 5.
Okay. So no, I was wrong. He did have 7 health. I did 2 by destroying a lane shield. So there was 2 lane shields up. So I apologize for that miscommunication. There was 2 lane shields up. I destroyed 1, and then it goes over to Ethan's turn.
Gets to rotate. Now he gets to place himself exactly where he wants to for that lane shield.
I can take it my side.
Okay, so this is interesting. there's a couple thought processes we have here. So Ethan can either go for blue or red. If he takes blue, then he can attack center, and he only needs a 5 to destroy it at this point. Or he could work with other players and weaken, like work with Gabe per se, and weaken red. But the problem is even if we take red, if we destroy that lane shield, he is going to gain 2 health, which is going to put him just out of reach of kill for whoever owns blue. Especially if they don't do any damage this turn and they don't kill him. So Ethan's thinking to himself, we're basically trying to make that decision. Which one does he go for? Now, what he's doing with Blue Gate, this is called a gate exchange, where you attack a gate that another player owns, and then you attack the center, and then you give that gate up again on your next turn to another player to then take from you again. And that way you can do multiple attacks from the same gate in one rotation. This is something that doesn't really happen a lot in New York, but it's something that happens here happened in the grand finals, happened in Indiana a lot. It's pretty meta. It's one of those endgame strategies that some of the more experienced players do. But we're just going to kind of see what happens here.
He has to fight from the spot, though, because somebody's on that spot already.
Just to know if I think I'll just roll the day.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ethan did end up going for blue.
You got a 1? Oh, wow. 4.
You're still fine. You're at 8.
All right.
So, and he will attack from the blue gate.
Okay, and it looks like Ethan actually did take blue as well. So I do remember this
He rolled a 5 or
actually.
6. Andrew's done.
And
Can he attack right away from the
as we said, Andrew has 5 health. It's going to come down for Ethan
What's your
whether or not he is able to
5?
do 5
If
or
Andrew
6
somehow
damage.
survived this, I think he
To
could
be
win
honest,
the
only
game.
one other player.
I'm trying to get a path.
It depending,
Okay.
games can go in different ways, but majority of the time, one player takes
Small.
yeah. Get him the game. It would have to be crazy. You'd have to get him on for life.
I know, 1, and then Lucas
One or
would
two.
attack the lane
I'm
shield.
attacking the center.
Okay, so here he goes. He attacks the center.
no!
He rolled a
So Andrew is sitting at 1 because
1 health again.
and his health was at 5.
Again, after 2 rotations, he was down to 1 twice. So that's insane. And actually, so maybe I was wrong the first time. So maybe he never got below 4 the first rotation, and then he went up to 7, and now he's at 1. So that's when that restoration die comes into effect, and how it saved his life. Because if he didn't have that restoration die before, then he would be at 2. And at this point, there's 2 things that could happen. Lucas is going to have to go for the gate exchange to take blue back, and then Gabe is going to have to destroy that black lane shield, which he doesn't have a bonus for, and I'll talk about that in a second.
All right.
The only way he dies now.
Lane shield. Yeah.
Yes. If Lucas rolls against that lane shield and deals 2 damage.
rolls.
No way.
You get, like,
Now, I'm not exactly sure. Why did they say Lucas?
it's not possible. You gotta break it. You gotta break the shield regardless.
We have -2. on
Wait,
your
wait,
rolls,
can he
right?
break the lane shield? Is it possible?
Dude, you have to.
Have to
break
get
the
a
lane
6.
shield.
He has to get a 6?
Do you have any black bonus?
The lane
He's not breaking the lane.
center lane shield's breaking no matter what. So you're not breaking.
Oh, we're talking about the center. Okay, I thought you were talking about the black.
Okay, this is what we're talking about. And this is where it comes in. So Lucas had red. And this is actually so crazy. So we talked about before, I was like, okay, well, Gabe could go for red. Okay, so right now, currently, Lucas has red. So this is actually more significant than I was even thinking. And I apologize for the sort of scatterbrain that I have about the matter. But if Lucas were to, and what that would do is on the next turn, we would have the ability to attack from both blue and red, assuming that Andrew doesn't take over one of those gates. The problem is that if he destroys red, Andrew will go to 3 health, which will mean that if Gabe destroys the black lane shield, it will not kill him. And we're assuming in our head that all he has to do is destroy the black lane shield. And we're like, we don't want to ruin it. In other words, we cannot kill Andrew this second rotation right now, because we're already only a person away. If we take out that center lane shield. So Lucas is in a situation where we don't know exactly what to do. Do we put him and have him try to go for the gate exchange on blue, or does he or does he just destroy that lane shield so that on the next rotation we have a better chance of killing him? The only thing is that we're worried about is specifically kind of what Andrew was talking about earlier is we're really thinking like we have to destroy him right now on this turn, this rotation, because if it gets the next rotation, we might not have a chance. And that's kind of what I'm arguing here. So let's just kind of watch, see what happens.
I think it's safer to
the
have him
lane
at 1
shield,
because I can deal 2
and then that
damage
can kill him.
to
But if he
attack
does not get it,
that.
that's what I'm.
Okay, so it looks like Lucas actually.
have to, without a
Nope.
black bonus,
He has
Actually,
to
he
have a
did.
6. He has to get a 6.
Next turn, he can.
The odds of that versus just destroying.
I can
Wow.
roll 1, or I can.
Yeah.
Okay. So it looks like Lucas
Did get another dragon. He might be
he's got
just went for blue for the gate exchange. I could be wrong about that,
all else.
but his turn ended up being
shield's
inconsequential.
around for him to break.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It was a good decision on his part as well.
To be a dragon roll, brother versus brother and grandfather.
I'm not going for
Weird.
that, it's crazy.
Well, if you're
I
live on
think-
YouTube, does that make you like a Z-list celebrity at
I
best?
just don't want to put the whole game in that because if he misses, then he just blocks it. He just blocks it and we get nothing.
Yeah.
I think he's at 1. And then what if he takes blue?
That's pretty
He blocks
jamming.
blue, take blue, and then he gets a stockade.
Oh.
I think our
Here we're kind of just discussing the whole situation of if we give Andrew another turn.
You can still go for blue and try to take it from me. Except for maybe.
Okay, so the discussion here is does Gabe, because Gabe has a blue bonus. So and this is the main thing to talk about. This is probably the biggest thing because Gabe chose to play Wizard instead of Wolverine. So he has a blue bonus right now, not a black bonus. Because he has a blue bonus, the thought is right now on Gabe's turn specifically to go as a team. It divvies up the gates that then Andrew's going to get another turn if he fails, and we need to be able in the battle that takes place is going to lower the odds to below a 50-50 slightly. And my thought is just go for the lane shield and just kill him now. And so that's kind of the argument we're having. And they're saying, well, no. And I think there's more to it, but that's the basic thought is like, should he go for blue? And I think the other reason why too is because this gate exchange with Lucas, he's also able to attack blue as well. So if, in other words, I suppose it might be more guaranteed, or might have a higher chance if they both go for it. It's kind of up in the air, but the general gist is that on the next turn, one strategy will help us kill him next turn. The other strategy will help him kill him now, but the odds are a little higher.
You just remove the lane shield is at 3. Like if you just move lane shield right back up. Right back up. You can place a couple moves. I mean, if he rolls a 5, we only if he rolls the 5 and gets the 1, I guess, then gets the plus. Yeah.
I like how they
Reach
just
my hand.
Oh, everyone's in a pickle. They don't know what to do.
Yeah, but
Even
All right. Okay.
wait.
So Lucas on his turn. So I again, sorry for it. It's hard to tell with the camera work that we're doing, but Lucas ended up attacking blue. All right. So now what it comes down to is we need to put Lucas in Gabe in a position to where he can attack the blue gate. So first of all, if Lucas would have destroyed that gate, then he would have been able to battle and then go for the center. But right now, I'm pretty sure we're at a pretty tough spot because I don't know how we're gonna get Gabe in a position to take blue.
we went.
Alright, is it my turn?
Why didn't nobody attack?
-2 in battles.
Oh.
Okay, and right there, that's what it is. I was wondering. I'm like trying to set this straight in my brain, but okay. In my brain, I'm pretty certain that I know this is exactly what happened. Now I'm remembering very clearly. The plan is that Lucas and Gabe both go for blue. we had figured out a way that they could move the board that could be possible. But the problem is that well, and the reason why we did that is because we can guaranteed take blue. We can dink the battle, which means that we have a stronger than like a 75% chance of winning it. And then we can take center for free, which has 1 health at this point. The alternate strategy is a 50-50. But Gabe right here just rolled a -2 in battles. So this is this is actually the biggest thing to happen right now. Because he has -2 in battles, even if the other player uses a dink die, he actually has a lower chance, less than a 50-50 chance of taking it if he does the battle. So and maybe my math is off on that, but the point is that it's either a 50-50 or lower. So there's no point in him going for this battle anymore. It just isn't going to work. So right here,
Gosh, are you serious?
and let's preface, this wouldn't have happened if he played his normal character, the Wolverine, instead of the Wizard, because the Wizard has a +2 to destroy the black lane shield. He would only need to roll a 2, but he chose the Wizard, and the only advantage to that would be taking the blue gate, which he just rolled a -2 in battles, which has destroyed his chances for doing so. So now it really is like, Gabe made this what he thought was a big brain play, changing characters. And it's coming down to the end game strategy of me, Ethan, Lucas, and Gabe, all of us together, trying to figure something out. And it's ultimately going to come down to a 50-50 Gabe rolling on the black lane shield.
What we were doing, we were getting Gabe into this position so Ethan would ding. And then
Gotcha.
-2 in battles.
And then I literally got mine too.
So Lucas got out. Gabe got.
What are the chances?
What are the odds? So
He would need to. Maybe. Oh no!
And Gabe,
No!
Oh.
Wait, no, but you have a +2.
Nah.
right there, you see, I'm playing as Wizard. So he rolled it.
Even with it,
What did he roll?
doesn't work. Oh.
No! He actually survived.
He rolled a 2. So that's big. And then it comes down then to the last rotation here. So we can move on to Andrew's turn here. And we'll just kind of see what he does. He places his last lane shield on blue. He gains health. He's back up to 4.
He's got 3 lane shields up protecting him.
As a player
Which can most likely
on the
happen.
board against the Gatekeeper,
Even if
there's just no hope.
It's pretty rough.
Listen, that lane shield is the only thing. Now take him to 2. And this is the only thing. If Steven doesn't
And I
catch
got
up, there's
-2
only
on
one
all
thing left.
rolls. And I
They
rolled
take
7.
2 damage him, and Gabe one more time. He can do it one more time.
I'm sorry, I'm taking a while.
On
I
his
gotta
trade
take this
card,
out.
he has a
This is
-2. Wait, which camera is that at? Is that?
Okay. And as we move forward towards the end of the...
You're Andrew, right?
And also, I get my initials.
Okay.
Initials. Steal 2 life. I'm stealing 2 from Lucas.
Okay.
For the blue gate?
I'm at 16, and I'm poisoning Lucas.
Okay. So if I remember correctly, and so I'll just kind of skip past all this. Andrew went out. He killed a player. I believe it was Lucas. He captured one of the gates, and I think after doing so, I don't know if he jackpotted. It says he has 16 health here, so it looks like he captured Blackgate, right? He took and then.
Okay, and so I can move to you and then force myself under position, right?
So Ethan goes. So yeah, Lucas goes for black.
Blue gate, right?
Or Andrew goes for black.
Killed someone.
He takes it from Lucas, and then he goes to battle him.
You might actually survive this whole thing.
And then when he kills him, he jackpots and gets all his health back, and that's what it is. So you can kind of summarize his victory like this. In the beginning of the game, Lucas said to me, he said, "Hey, let's team up. with everybody. Let's force Andrew to jackpot, which is exactly what Andrew was talking about earlier in the stream, which he recognized people try to make him do. So Lucas said that to me. Me, Ethan, Lucas, and Gabe all had this in our heads that we're going to force him into it, and we were going to divvy up the Gabe so that we'd be into a fair met early game or mid game, which as far as Gabe's concerned, it doesn't really matter because he's only going to have a chance at end game anyway. Me, Ethan, and Lucas are going to be pretty even at that point because momentum will be divided. And to be honest, Lucas probably thought if he kills Andrew, then he's going to have a strong position, which is true. And he normally would be the person to kill because he had the 2 stronger gates, and those are the gates he plays for and stuff like that, or offensive gates. Ultimately, Andrew, we can talk about it. He did 2 things. The first thing he did was he delayed himself a turn by doing damage to himself or something along those lines, poisoning himself or something like that, so that he would not last as long, or he wouldn't become Gatekeeper as fast. Then, and his next turn, he was able to get the Restoration Die ability, which saved his life on the first turn. He also did the T-pose strat, okay, with the center lane shield, blocking red with the gain 2 health lane shield. That forced red to not attack, which that you would just attack center and get the dragon and then just open up a lane for the next turn. But he couldn't do that because the only open lane we had was to blue, and the only way we had to kill him was from the black lane shield. So if he were to do that, then we would lose our chance to kill him from blue or the black lane shield because he would have too much health. He would have 3, not 1. So then we change up strategies. Lucas and Gabe both go for blue. The thought being that if we take blue, we can do a gate exchange and then take, and that would give us a high chance of taking the center. Compared to going for a 50-50 on a black lane shield. That is only a 50-50 because Gabe decided to play Wizard instead of the Wolverine. So, with all of that being said, Gabe ultimately rolled -2 in battles, which was super also because he chose a Wizard. That is a disadvantage that the Wizard has that was unfortunately something that just kind of hit us. That's the RNG in Gatekeeper. And he had to go for the 50-50 on the black lane shield, which he did not get. And then onto the board, he battled Lucas, he killed him, and then was able to get a jackpot from the kills, hit 20 health, and then ultimately there was no way we could defeat him because it was last rotation. In fact, I think it all came down to right here.
With the camera again.
So wait, what are we going for?
Verily, I say unto you, it has been done before, and it shall be done again upon Andrew. Everybody, with me.
Oh. Just a 2.
Okay, so he didn't kill him. So look, Gabe didn't kill him. I don't know if he was going for a dragon roll or something like that. It looks like he was going. No,
Rinsler from the Tron soundtrack.
Oh, okay.
It's hard to tell what he was going for. I believe it was either a dragon roll or it was some sort of battle or something like that. But anyway, Gabe, of course, as always, going for the clutch. Like I said, that it's that end game. He has the vision for those big rolls at the end. Anyway, other than that, I think that's going to be the full analysis here. The grand finals, ultimately a great game. Andrew was a step ahead of us. We kind of relied on an old strategy to take him out, and it was just outdated at that point. And as far as the way the game played out, we can see all of the different things happening. For me, me, Ethan, and Lucas were all probably pretty equally proportioned in strength by the time we got to the end game there, or by the time we got to the mid game. So it really came down to Andrew's ability to turn our strat against us, and then once again coming down to Gabe's clutch at the end failing. Unlike the way he succeeded in the semifinals of last year to get into the grand finals. So it is what it is, and I hope everyone enjoyed the podcast. The last thing I'd probably say is, like, season 5, we got some big events that we're planning. Hope to see you guys all there, and we'll be posting the dates and the matches online on Facebook and stuff like that very soon. So anyway, that's the risk of Gatekeeper, boys.